Let's talk all about the 2x2 Cricut Card Mat for Explorer and Maker Cricut machines. I am so excited to bring you this video because I was super intimidated by using the 2x2 card mat when I first got it. So I want to break it down for you because now I love it. I think it's super easy to use, and I love that I can make multiple insert cards at once. And speaking of that, I'm going to be talking specifically in this video about making insert cards with the card mat, but you can also use cutaway cards with that as well. So let me know down in the comments below if you want to see some more cutaway card content. I can definitely bring you some more information about that. So the first thing I want to talk about with the card mat is where to get files. And the first place is right within Cricut Design Space. Now you can go into the images library and you can search for insert card images here. You can utilize those, or you can actually go into the projects and you can search for insert cards and see tons and tons of different options, plus a bunch of different sizes and really cool stuff like that. Now, the one caveat to this is that this does often require Cricut Access. So you'll probably have to have a Cricut Access subscription in order to use most of these. But the great thing is that you can click on any of these cards and then go down to the finished size, and you can choose any of the sizes below. Now, we're gonna talk a little bit in a few minutes about Cricut insert card sizing, so don't worry about what these numbers mean just yet because I'll break all of that down. But that part makes it really easy. But for those of you who either don't like the style of some of these insert cards, I personally find some of them to be just not really up my alley, not really what I want to make with a card. I want to show you how you can actually import SVG files that you can use with the Cricut Card Mat. So we'll go back to our canvas here. I'm sure there are a variety of places that you can get these SVG files, but I found a ton of them on Creative Fabrica. So for those of you with the all access subscription, this is super easy because there are so many options here for literally every occasion. And I'll put a link down in the description below if you don't have the all access subscription at Creative Fabrica because it is awesome. I use it all the time. But all I did was search for Cricut insert card. You can also play around with some of those search terms. And I found pages and pages of different cards, including stuff like this that are really intricate, really beautiful holiday cards, things for Easter, like Valentine's Day, so many different options. And in today's tutorial, I'm going to be making 4 different types of cards because that's just what I need right now. So you can mix and match this to be based on what you need or what you're going to need in the months coming up, which is why I love the card mat because we can be so efficient with our time. If we're going to be making one insert card, we might as well make some more, right? So lots of great options here on Creative Fabrica. Now I've already downloaded and extracted all of the files that I'm going to be using for this tutorial. So I will link my beginner playlist down in the description below if you need help with how to do things like that. So we're going to go back into Cricut Design Space and I'm going to show you what these files look like. I've uploaded them recently, so I'm going to be making these 4 cards, and then this little B is a part of this Happy B-Day card, but it's going to go in this little gap right here in my card. So I'm going to insert this as well and add this to my canvas. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how to look for SVG files that are going to work with the Cricut Card Mat, because that was something else I was a little bit intimidated by when I first got started. I was a little bit confused as to how you would know what kind of SVG files you'd be looking for in order to use them on the card mat. And essentially what you're looking for is insert card SVG files. So we know they're insert card SVG files because we have these slits in the corners. That's where the insert is going to go into the back of the card, but you'll notice that they don't have a border around them. So let me open up the SVG files or the bundle of files that came with some of these downloads, and I'll show you the difference between what those look like. So you'll notice here that for the congratulations baby shower card, there is a card mat version and a standard version of this SVG file. Now I can't promise that every single SVG file is going to come that way, but all 4 that I downloaded from Creative Fabrica had this same format of a folder with card mat SVGs and a standard version of these SVGs. So actually the best way to demonstrate this is probably just to upload one of the standard versions into Cricut Design Space. So I'm going to go back to upload and I'm going to upload an image and find that same file, upload it to show you the preview. So when you see the preview of this SVG file, you can tell that this would not fit on the Cricut Card Mat because the Cricut Card Mat's only going to be showing the front of the card. So if you upload these standard SVG files into Cricut Design Space, this is how you would create an insert card if you just wanted to use a regular cutting mat, not the Cricut Card Mat. So that's still valuable because you may not have a Cricut Card Mat, and that's perfectly fine. And these can be made on any Explorer or Maker machine. So still a really great option for you, but you're not going to be able to use the card mat if when you import your SVGs, they look something like this. So I wanted to point that out because that was a source of confusion for me when I first got started working with the card mat. The other important thing that we need to keep in mind when working with the card mat is the size of the files themselves, and they can only be certain sizes. So I created this little chart for you guys. You're welcome to screenshot it here if you'd like. These are the sizes that Cricut Design Space will offer you. You saw with the drop-down menu that we had options for the R10, R20, R30, R40, and S40, and that correlates to these sizes. So in order to use the card mat, it has to be one of these sizes in order to fit on the face of it. And I believe when working with the 2x2 card mat, I don't think that you can use the R10 size. I think the R10 size is only for the Cricut Joy single card mat. You'll see that in the next screen, but we don't get R10 as an option for our size. So all of the cards that we're going to be working with today are sized at the R20 size, which is 4.25 inches by 5.5 inches. But you could use these other sizes as well. Something else that confused me is, what do these numbers mean? And I'm honestly not sure what these numbers mean at the end, but I have learned that the R in all of these stands for rectangle, and the S in this one stands for square. So there's only one dimension and one size for square cards, and all the rest of them are rectangular. So hopefully that helps you, and hopefully this little chart will help you when you're bringing in your SVG files. You'll know exactly what size to size them in case they don't come into Cricut Design Space the correct size already. So now that we know a little bit more about our insert cards, let's get these prepared to work on our card mat. Because something else that's really important is whenever you bring in SVG files, if you're going to be using the pen feature at all or the writing feature with your machine, your text is never going to come in as writing. You're going to have to individually change that on each file. So it's really, really easy to do. Let me show you how to do that real quick, because each of these cards does have a text option. Go ahead and click on this first one and then go over to the layers panel. And you'll see that this section right here on your baby shower, of course, is meant to be a pen feature. That layer is meant to be a cut layer, and this layer is also meant to be a text layer as well. So we're going to take both of these top two layers and we're going to turn them into writing style layers instead of cut layers. Because right now, when we click on them in the layers panel here, you'll see under operation, it still says basic cut. So to change these to a writing style, we're going to click on the drop-down menu and choose under draw. We're just going to choose pen. And I'm going to leave all of my pens here on the fine point, which is the 0.4 millimeter pen in black, because I want to use the same pen on all four of my cards. But if you want to change that up and use different pens, you are more than welcome to do so. I also recommend changing it here on the canvas because that's what's going to prompt you to change the pens when you get to the cutting stage. So you want to make sure you let your Cricut know you want to change those pens out if that's what you prefer to do. So I'm going to leave all mine the same, and then I'm going to click on the second layer of the card that also needs to be written and go back to operation and change it from basic cut to draw with a pen. Then before we move on to the next card, the next thing we need to do is click on the group of layers and choose attach. And remember, with attach, that's going to allow our writing layers and our cutting layers to cut exactly in place. So it's important that we use the attach function so that everything comes out correctly. Then we'll just repeat the process on these other cards based on what they need. So for the Happy B-Day card, it's pretty obvious that this is the layer that needs to be writing. So we'll highlight it in the layers panel, go under operation and change it to pen. And then we'll click on the group of layers here and select attach. Then here it's just the congratulations layer that needs to be drawn. We'll attach this one. And then this is the only writing section of this card. So we'll change that to draw and then attach. And then we are all ready to go. So before we move on, since we've worked so hard on our cards, we want to be sure to save our project. So we'll save it before we move on, just in case we need to come back and make any changes. And then we can click on the green Make It button. And again, make sure you have the correct machine selected. I'm going to be using my Maker 3. The 2x2 Card Mat is also compatible with the original Maker, as well as the Explorer 3 and the Cricut Explorer family. The only machine it is not compatible with in this case is the Cricut Joy. So then we'll click the green Make It button and we'll take a look at how everything looks. So right now we have our cards just on a regular cutting mat. So in order to change that, we're going to click on the mat that has the cards on it. And under material load type, we're going to change from on a mat to on card mat. And that's going to select everything and put it on its own mat. But we have a little problem here because we have a B on one of our panels and we're missing one of our cards. We're going to go ahead and cancel this and go back to our canvas. And one thing we need to do is we need to change the color of this B because we don't want it to cut on our card mat. We want it to appear on its own mat. So I'm going to change the B to a super dark gray instead, or at least the background of the B so that it's on its own mat. Then we'll go ahead and save our project once more and try it again. So we'll go back to this one and we'll choose on card mat. But as you can see, we have one small problem. We are missing one of our cards. So we'll go to the mat where it is and we'll give moving it a try. Spoiler alert, I already know how this is going to shake out because I worked on this project, but I wanted to show you guys an example in case this happens to you. So if your cards get separated, you can click on the image itself and then click on the three dots and click Move Object. And then we can click on the card mat and choose Confirm. But we get this error, and for some reason, this image says it can't fit on the mat. So we'll go ahead and cancel our cut one more time and go back into our canvas. And then we need to slightly resize our image. So I already told you that our image needs to be 5.5 by 4 inches, or these dimensions can be the other way around for cards that are oriented vertically. But for whatever reason, I could not get this card to cut on the card mat. So I had to make a couple of really minor adjustments. And I think what I did was I changed the width to like 4.23 inches. And press enter, and that should make it just a little bit smaller, and that should get us on the card mat here. So just a little tiny tweak that won't even be noticeable to anybody else, and then we'll click on Make It. We'll check out the way our mats are sorted. We'll give this one more try and click on a card mat. Oh, and this one must be a different color, which is also probably why it's sorting to its own mat too, but that's okay. So we'll go ahead and click on the image and click on Move Object. Move it to the card mat and click on Confirm, and it's still not wanting to work with us. So let's try rotating our image to see if we can get it on there if it's sideways. Maybe it thinks it can't fit because it's the wrong orientation. Nope. Okay. Well, then we'll cancel it one more time and we'll go back into Cricut Design Space and we'll have to make another tweak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to detach my layers so that I can work with them individually. Then I'm going to go into the color sync panel and see if I can drag my color onto the same color as the rest of the cards. So that should help it match up. And then we'll go ahead and go back to the layers panel and click attach one more time and see if that will allow us to cut it. So now that we have all 4 cards on the same mat, we'll go ahead and select on a card mat. And there we go. So now we have all 4 cards showing on our card mat, which is great. The other thing you'll see is that under material size, we do have to select one of these card sizes. Everything here is going to be rectangular, so it's just showing us the largest rectangular sizes for our insert cards. Remember, you can refer back to that chart that I showed you if you need to take a look at those sizes. So we're going to keep R20 selected because that's the size that all of our cards are. And we can see that all of the parts of the B are on their own mat as well. Now, one thing I do want to say too is if you change the colors in the canvas, they are going to appear on different card mats. So even though I'm going to be using different colors of insert cards for all of my cards, I'm keeping them all black because I want them to be on the same card mat. But for the Happy B-Day card, I don't have a yellow card like I I want. I have a black background that I need, but not a yellow card. So I'm actually going to show you how to create your own or cut your own with cardstock. So I'll show you that when we get over to my Cricut. But all of these are going to be the same color because I want them all in the same card mat, even though I'm using different colors of insert cards. So next I'll go ahead and click on continue. And once my Maker 3 connects, we can choose our cut setting. There is an insert card setting on the Cricut Maker if you search for it, but I did not have as good success with the insert card cut setting on my Maker 3. That's normally what I use with my Joy, and it always works really well, but I have found that the medium cardstock cut setting worked the best. So I'm gonna select medium cardstock for my card mat, and you'll notice that it's prompting me to load in my pen into clamp A, and then I'm just gonna leave my fine point blade in clamp B. So now that we have our cut setting chosen, let's hop over to my Cricut machine and I'll show you how to cut all this out and assemble your cards. So once you're all set up in Cricut Design Space, next it's time to set up your card mat. So you'll notice on the 2x2 card mat that there are two different cover sheets, one over this side and one over this side. So before you add any insert cards or cutaway cards to your mat, the first thing you need to do is remove those cover sheets. And even if you're only cutting one card, because I forgot to mention that, you don't have to fill up all 4 spots if you don't want to. You can do 1 or 2 or 3 cards without filling up all 4. But even if you're only cutting less than 4, you should still take off the cover sheets when you're putting the card mat into your machine, because you want to make sure that these don't get caught up in the rollers and end up messing up your cut or getting stuck. So regardless, go ahead and remove those and set them aside. And next we need to stick our insert cards into the card mat. So the way that each of these works is exactly like an individual Cricut Joy card mat. So if you've never worked with those before, basically there's a little sleeve here on the side. You're gonna insert them from the left, and it is a little bit tight down to the material, but you're gonna slip the back side of the card under that, and then the top side of the card is going to sit on the front, so it's only gonna cut the top side of that card, and that's what makes this so easy to use and so awesome. So 3 of my cards are going to be existing insert cards from packs that I bought from Cricut, but for the Happy B-Day card, I'm gonna show you how to cut your own insert card in case you'd like to do that as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert the ones I have before I show you how to cut this one. What this looks like is you want to open up your insert card, and I know that I want this to be the front of my card, so I'm going to go ahead and get the back side underneath that clear folder like this, and then I'm going to push the whole back side into the pocket. Now it's super important that you shove your insert card all the way to the very top of the Cricut card mat. Make sure it's all the way lined up, and then it's all the way folded over. And you'll know if it's all the way folded over because it should reach the line here on the side. See how that says 10, 20, 30, and 40? You need to make sure that you're reaching that R20 line because that's the size of our insert card. So that's going to be really essential in making sure that your cut is well lined up. And sometimes they are still a little bit off. That happens to me all the time. I personally think that that is a little bit of a bug in Cricut Design Space. But in order to ensure the best results that you can get yourself, you want to be sure that you have your insert cards placed correctly by reaching over to that line and being all the way up at the top. So now I'm going to follow that same process with the rest of the insert cards that I already have cut. So I'm just going to slip it into that folder, push it over to the side, pull it up top there so that it's hitting that top line, and folding it over. Sometimes if you're having trouble getting your insert card in through the back of the folder, you can pick up the Cricut Card Mat to kind of create a little bit of a pocket in that back folder. And that just makes it easier to wiggle the card inside, especially if you have a newer card mat. I have mostly only used this top one, so these other folders are a little bit tighter. And make sure that that fold line is all the way at the base of the folder, and push over the top of my insert card. So I have these 3 loaded, and now I'm gonna show you how I would cut my own insert card. And again, I'm cutting my own because I don't have a yellow card. I do have a black backer that I'm gonna put behind my insert card already, but I don't have a front panel just like this, so I'm just gonna cut my own. Now, when choosing your cardstock, I do recommend using at least 80-pound cardstock. Something you wanna keep in mind is that it has to have the same cut setting on all 4 of these cards. I don't think I said that in the design space section, but in order for all of these cards to cut on the same mat, they do all have to have the same cut setting. So because I'm using a medium cardstock cut setting for these 3 insert cards, I'm gonna use an 80-pound cardstock on this one as well, because that's also considered medium cardstock by Cricut. So make sure that your cut settings are all the same, and the sizes have to be all the same on the same card mat. Now, of course, you could insert your cards, cut them, and then insert another load of cards if you have a different size, but they all have to be the same size and the same cut setting on the same card mat. So I hope all of that makes sense. So when it comes to cutting my insert card, I'm just gonna use my paper trimmer, and then I am gonna use a bone folder to score the edge so that it's perfectly folded. So because I have the R20 card and I want it to be a vertical card that opens like this instead of a horizontal card, the first thing I'm gonna do is cut my height to 5.5 inches. So I'm gonna put my cardstock in sideways, move it to 5.5. And then use my paper trimmer to cut that width. The other dimension for an R20 card would be 4.25 inches. That's what the width would normally be, but because we need to make a fold in half, we're going to double the 4.25 measurement, and we're gonna cut our width to 8.5 inches. So I'm gonna put my card in here until it gets to 8.5 on my ruler. Then I'll use my blade to cut it to 8.5 inches wide. Then I'm gonna show you this handy dandy trick that I've learned on my paper trimmer, and I'm gonna use it as a means to score using this line right here and my bone folder. So since I want it to fold at 4.25 inches, I'm gonna take my card and I'm gonna move it to the 4.25 inch line on my ruler here. Then I'm gonna hold it in place. And actually, I could probably put the acrylic ruler down on top of it. I'm gonna hold down the acrylic ruler with one hand, and then I'm just gonna take my bone folder and run it across that line where the blade normally goes. And now I have a perfectly scored insert card. So I can go ahead and fold this in half, and I'll use the bone folder to really set the crease. And now I have a card that's the exact same size as the others that I didn't have to buy in a pack, which is awesome. All right, and once we have all 4 insert cards on the card mat, we are ready to cut in our Cricut machine. So there's a couple more things we need to do though. And the first is that we need to move all of our star wheels into the middle of the Cricut card mat because we don't want to leave lines from our star wheels in our cardstock. So I'm just gonna take these little white wheels and I'm gonna slide them over until they are in the middle of my card mat like this. And I can check it by putting it here, sliding them a little further over so that they're all gonna be in the center here. And that way they won't run over my cardstock. The other thing I need to do is add my pen into clamp A. So I'm gonna take my 0.4 millimeter fine point pen and put the cap on the back. Make sure that the gray triangle is facing me in the front. Open up clamp A and support it underneath with my finger. Push my pen in and close the clamp. And then I'm ready to draw and cut all at the same time with my card mat. So I'll go ahead and click the arrow to insert the mat into my machine. And of course, it's going to measure my mat first. And then when it's ready, I'll click go. Now that our card mat is finished, I'm gonna go ahead and remove my pen and place the cat back on. And I'm gonna go ahead and unload the card mat and set it aside while I cut the other pieces that I need for the Happy B-Day card, just using cardstock and a regular light grip cutting mat. So now that my bee is assembled, I'm gonna set it aside to dry while I work the rest of the cards off of the card mat. One tool that can be really handy for this is your Cricut spatula, especially if your insert cards have a lot of intricate cuts, or if this is a newer mat and it's gonna be super sticky. So just like any other project, what I like to do is flip my mat over and peel the insert cards off of the card mat like this. And I'll probably use my spatula to do a lot of it, just to make sure that I don't rip any of the cards. So just like any other Cricut project, this can require some patience, especially if you have some more intricate designs like I chose, but the results are definitely worth it. Now that we have this piece off, I'll go ahead and pull it out and set it aside. You can also pull out any other pieces that stayed inside the card. And there's our first one. So I'll repeat the process with all the other insert cards. This top piece is probably not sticky enough that I can probably just pull it up gently, because like I said, I've used this first spot the most, so it's a little less tacky than the other spots on the card mat. So that one came up pretty easily. You can also use a Cricut weeding tool to kind of poke through some of these pieces and remove the really intricate pieces that stayed behind on your card. And then to get all of the little tiny pieces off of your card mat, I like to use my little red scraper tool or any kind of scraper that has kind of a hard edge on it. To scrape the pieces up and then off the mat. You want to be careful about scraping over top of the sides, just because that can get little cardstock pieces stuck in the crevices of your card mat, and that can be kind of a pain. And then before we go any further, while my card mat is clean, I'm going to go ahead and place my cover sheets back over top of my card mat. And when you look at it, there's a dull side to it and a shiny side. And the shiny side is what gets stuck down on top of the adhesive strips to keep them clean for future cards. Then when you're ready, the only assembly you have to do with an insert card is to add the insert. So I'm simply gonna open my card from the inside and take my insert and place it face down, so it's gonna show through the front of the card. And then I just slip it into the corners that were cut by my card mat. And sometimes when they are intricately shaped like these are, we do have to be a little careful not to rip the corners of the card. But once we flatten it out, that's literally it. Generally speaking, there's no gluing or anything. Now this card, of course, we have to glue our B on, but generally speaking, that's it. It's that easy. That's why I love making these insert cards and using the 2x2 card mat, because I figure if I'm gonna make one insert card, I might as well make 4, right? And then I can have them for a future occasion, on hand and ready to go. And there's our second card all finished. So we'll just very carefully place these so that we don't rip the corners of our card. So there's our third card. And then lastly, I'm gonna go ahead and put the insert in first, and then I'm gonna glue on my B so that I don't have to flip it over with any wet glue on it. And when I measured this, in case you need to cut your own insert, I believe I measured it at 5 1/4 inches wide by 4 inches high. Then we'll just take a little bit of glue and place it on the back of our B, and our B will go right there. And there you have it. Here's our finished Happy B-Day card. And once you've added all of your inserts in, then your cards are finished and assembled. If you learned something in this video, don't forget to give it a like and make sure to subscribe to DIY Alex for more videos a lot like this one. I love connecting with you guys on social media, so please use the links down in the description below to find me on your favorite social media platforms. All the hearts.